Good morning, believers. Good morning, Israel. It's your brother, JD Naja, Jeff Deloach. Balsa Chica State Beach, world famous Huntington Beach, California, Surf City. Oh, all praises, honor, and glory. Slovakia. We know these are demonic days right now. The end of April, from the 19th to the May 1st, May Day, where if any of you are feeling it, it's this time period where these devils are working their wicked schemes and stirring up their wicked brews and coming forth with some witchcraft and all that. So if you're feeling tired and worn out and weak in your spirit, it's because of this bullshit time period that we're in, the end of April. It's a tough one. So fuck, I'm sorry. Oh boy, this part of the Bible in Genesis is very interesting, and we can glean a lot of. I'm still in chapter 3, chapter 4. I was reading through here and looking at some stuff. You know that. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, bless my brothers and sisters. Give them peace, comfort, protection, knowledge of the promises that you made to us, that you have good for us in the future, and you don't have plans of evil. Lift us up. Amen. So, I don't even know if I really want to get into this, because I'm already kind of butthurt by the women thing, but one of the main themes is this theme of obeying God. Are you gonna believe all kinds of nonsense? These false prophets, these wicked teachers that are out here trying to tell you, watch out for the giants, watch out for the strange demons in people, watch out for this. Yeah, there's going to be strange stuff. There's always been strange stuff. It's just ramping up. It's the same wicked shit as all the way back in the Bible when Satan, it's a subtle game that the devil plays on us. So I was looking up the word subtile. These guys just can't figure out that that's the same word as subtle. I wanted to make sure, because I didn't want to lead anyone astray. It's basically the word subtle. He was so subtle. He was so cunning. The spells that we're under are so cunning and so hard to decipher. And that's why in Matthew it says, in the last days, even the elect might be deceived, because the deception is like we were talking about yesterday. It's walking that fence line. You can't tell if it's on this side or that side. It's walking that top of the fence line. But the problem with that is when the wind of the Lord comes through, when he sets these angels free, it's going to blow from the good side to the bad side. So if you're on that fence, if you're not down below somewhere, you're better off, like the Lord said. He'd rather you be hot or cold. He doesn't, that the ones that walk the fence line, those are the ones that are causing all the trouble. And there's not going to be very many that are on that fence line that are going to be able to jump down on the right side before he comes, because it's going to come in a blink of an eye. So if you're walking that fence line and you think you're funny, GMS, the joke's on you, dudes. Anyway, let's get into this a little bit. It's not very happy. This is the sadness that we're under, the sorrow that we're under to this day. So, oh man, the curse. And the Lord said, verse 14 of Genesis 3, the Lord God said unto the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. This childbirth thing, there's a wickedness between coming into this matrix. And I think that's what I've never really understood it completely. Bruise thy heel. And about the seed, but it's basically saying you're not going to have all the power anymore, and in the end the woman's she's gonna bring forth the man child, and that's what I wanted to get into today. So down below it says, let's see, Satan is the enemy of the human race, explaining why God put enmity, in other words, he's the enemy between thee and Satan and the woman, that he would place a spiritual barrier between the seed, Satan's people, and her seed, God's people. Okay, that kind of explains it. Not completely, but to a certain extent. It's basically saying there's bad ones and there's good ones, and that's kind of a hard one to grip onto, because does that mean every wicked fucker out here has been this way and has no chance of salvation? That makes for a really creepy world, that people can't get better. And maybe that's why the narcissist is the way the narcissist is. They have this spirit of beguiling. They have this spirit of subtle wordplay. They take the words and they don't use them truthfully. The word of truth is not in them. So the words that come forth are false. They're misleading. They're demeaning. Whatever it is that these different ways that they use and don't use words, the sin of omission and the sin of commission, they're saying things that aren't true, and they aren't saying things that they should say that are true. So it comes down to that, all the way down to the word. Let's see. He would place a spiritual barrier between Satan's people and God's people, his seed and our seed. Wow. And 3, that the representative seed of the woman, i.e. the human being, or Christ, would deliver the death blow to Satan, but in so doing would be bruised himself. He shall crush thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Refers to Christ's bruising on the cross, which led to the eventual crushing of Satan and his kingdom. So I think I've heard that before, but it's hard for me to put that one in my tool chest for some reason. It's starting to make more sense. Oh, I didn't sleep good last night. I'm fucking agitated. These devils are up in my dreams and stuff. It's fucked up. So then it says in verse 16, unto thy woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow, and thy conception and sorrow. You shall bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over thee. It always sounded to me like, from what I could tell, that the desire that the woman has towards the husband isn't a pure desire. It's a desire to cause some kind of pain back to the husband for not protecting her in the garden. It did in the explanation down below, the commentary agrees with what I'm saying, because it doesn't put a needle point on what that desire is. So let me read it. The sorrow in thy conception. The word for sorrow or birth pangs sounds like the Hebrew word for tree, which is a reminder of the source of this pain in the sin involving the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It also looks forward to the crucifixion, when the curse ultimately will be hung on a tree. So this sorrow, these birth pangs, this death on the cross, these are the things that in prophecy, it keeps coming up over and over again. And it has to do with the death of Rachel. See, these are the things that I wish that GMS would, these guys that are supposed to be studying the Bible and knowing the Bible so well, what does it mean that Rachel died giving birth to Benjamin? That is one of the biggest mysteries of what does it mean? Why does the woman die to bring forth the child, the godchild, Benjamin of Judah? And what does it have to do with this sorrow? Rachel's sorrow, the sorrow of birth, this tree idea, the sorrow of Jesus hanging on the tree, the pain, the bruising of the woman's body when the child comes out, the blood. It's all connected in a way that I know there's some deeper meaning there, but it's hard for me to put in a contextual sense, because I have a feeling even if I try, there's going to be a lot missing. So I leave it open, and it's something for each person, each believer to ponder on. This is one of those prophecies that comes up over and over again. Isaiah says it, Ezekiel says it, I'm sure Amos probably says it. Isaiah, Jeremiah for sure says it. This birth pang, this sorrow that came out of the 12th child of Jacob, the 12th, the number 12, this number 12 fulfilling. Let me continue, because I don't know where I'm going, but I just wanted to throw that out there. This desire for the man has been variously interpreted. One, it could be a physical desire strong enough to compensate for the pain of childbirth. So that kind of makes sense. It's like, but what I found out is a lot of times after the baby's born, at least in my life, that pain, once the baby's born, the woman turns on you because she turns psychotic. What do they call it? They call it postpartum depression. Any man that's ever had a child with a woman that was close to that woman, there's a break. A lot of marriages fail in the first 3 years because there's a strange break between them after the child's born. There's a psychoness in the woman that's hard to understand. And a lot of times it'll ruin the marriage because the husband doesn't know what to do with it. Two, the other reason for this desire, her natural desire to submit to her husband's leadership. That has been completely demonically taken out of the woman through this wizardry, this subtle breaking up of the family, the empowering of women, the what do they call it, feminist movement, these type of things. That is deep inside a woman. I see it even in my narcissist. There's somewhere in her who wants to see me as I am, but this world, the devil, her family, her own pride, her ego, all those things stand between her actually being loyal, having loyalty to royalty. She can't do it. It's literally an impossibility for most women to submit in this day and age. So that's why we're in such a funky, flunky place. Or the third interpretation is perhaps a desire against her husband in not being willing to submit to him because of her fallen, sinful nature. That is the one that always stuck with me when I read that passage. And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. It sounds like a conflictual, warlike, competitive statement to me. It sounds like you two are not gonna know what to do with each other. I'm gonna make it so hard for you two to understand how you feel and how to act that it's not gonna be hard for the devil to come in and totally fuck you up unless you stay close to me. That's the way I always read it. Is there's a thin line. There's a thin line, and the woman has a lot to do with it. But let me read some more because it's interesting down here. It talks about Eve. I have about 6 minutes left. I'm going to get to the next part of this. Adam obeyed the voice of Eve and not God, which was the first marital role reversal. Sorrow is the same word applied to the woman in verse 16. Thus they shared equally in their punishment. Eve comes from the verb to live. Here is Adam's act of faith, looking to the future with hope. This word sounds like the word used in this verse, living. Adam seems not only to believe God spoke the truth, but also he has faith in salvation God had promised in verse 15 and 16. That's where we just were talking about the seed of the seed of God versus the seed of Satan. Somehow Adam understood what was being said there, and he had faith that going forward, that the Lord wasn't going to give up on him. Let's see what else it says. Adam seems to believe, coats of skin, and then it goes into the coats of skin. That's what brought me to these passages this morning. I heard someone talking about the coats of skin having to do with the blood, because the animals that the coats of skin came from the animals had to die. So that was the first example of the sacrificial covenant of blood. And it makes sense, but in a lot of ways, I think the coats of skin is when he put us in these chains of darkness. That we probably aren't. Adam and Eve, after the fall, are not like we are now. They were a little bit different at that point. The dimension was different. It's hard to understand what they were, I think. And when we hear coats of skin, it was basically he put us in a body. He made us a body. He put us in a physical realm, 3D world like we're in, but it was probably a little different. I'm thinking the dispensation was different, and these coats of skin were early examples of these chains of darkness. It's basically the body. I'm not sure if it was necessarily skins of animals. I think it was our own skin. We are the animals, and he put the blood. That's when he put the blood in us, and he made our system to a certain extent. Before we were all destroyed like we are now, we probably had a pretty awesome body at that point. It was That's why we lived so long. That's why the first people lived and lived and lived, because they had an undefiled system. It was as perfect as it is now, but without all the profanity and perversion that's been put onto, and all around, like we are now. We're in such a fucked up place right now. It's collapsing in on itself in every way. We've defiled every bit of ourselves and every bit of the world around us. It's basically destroyed. There's probably no turning back. The Lord's going to have to come and straighten that out. But anyway, moving forward, it says, I wanted to read you this one. The first messianic prophecy, it's called Proto-Evangelium. The promise that the seed, descendant of the woman, would crush the head of the serpent. Satan is the first messianic prophecy of the Bible. No specific details are given. Excuse me. Only the promise that a human being descending... shit. See what happens? Oh, boy. These devils. The human being descending from the line of the woman would finally triumph over Satan. Scholars have often called this the Proto-Evangelium, or first gospel. Application. The promise finds its fulfillment in the incarnation of the birth of Christ. The promise finds its fulfillment in the incarnation and birth of Christ. Quote, but when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law. That's Matthew 1:25. That was the explaining the birth of Jesus. The promise and fulfillment of... So the woman, in the end, the woman married. That's probably why the Catholics are so focused on Mary, because of this Proto-Evangelium, this first gospel, is that even though Eve created the theater or whatever, she created the she created the groundwork for this fall. She was the one that was disobedient. I forget the word I'm looking for. Adam was just as guilty, or more guilty, because he was supposed to be watching out for her. And a lot of people say, well, Adam wasn't around when that happened. I don't believe that. I believe he was right there. There was no separation. He wasn't out farting around somewhere else in the garden. He was right there listening and watching, and he was waiting to see what was going to happen. He was beguiled too, to a certain extent. So down here at the bottom it says, Eve is described as the mother of all living. As the first woman, she is the mother of the entire human race. The term woman, Isha, means from the man, ish, Jewish man, Jew man, whereas Eve is her personal name and comes from the verb to live, Haya, like karate chop, Haya. She gave us a karate chop, Haya. The account of her moral choice and its consequences is nowhere repeated in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, the fall of the human race is clearly viewed as a result of Adam's willful disobedience. So that's another example of what I experienced over and over again, and I take it seriously. I know that no matter how many times these women mess me up, cut my legs out from under me, cause me to get weak, cause me to be sad, be disobedient. At the end of the day, who gets blamed? Even that's the one thing Satan that has not given up on is he's gonna always accuse the. That's one thing that he holds to God's law is that the man is responsible for the woman and the children. So anything that happens with you and a family, no one disagrees that it's not your fault. And that's where I'm struggling these days, is knowing that no matter how much I cry, how much I whine, how much I point my finger and say, she did this, she did that, they did this, they did that. At the end of the day, I have to take responsibility for all of it. And that's where, as a man of God, you have to take responsibility. Adam is the one that gets blamed, even though Eve was beguiled. You need to, as a man, always take the hit. And I've taken the hit so many times now that I'm all punched up. I'm having a hard time getting up. I'm having a hard time getting up. The best I can do is bring these messages out so that other people can understand themselves and their walk with God a little better, and clarify some of this nonsense. JD Nyjah, Word of Truth. I ran out of time. Till the next one, I'm out.